In clinical practice, we often say that every patient is different. Yet when it comes to implant loading protocols, relatively rigid standards, such as 4 months for the maxilla and 2 months for the mandible, are still routinely applied. While this approach makes sense for clinical convenience, it hardly reflects each patient's unique bone quality, blood supply, systemic health, or healing response. Why then have we accepted this time-driven loading protocol for so long? During the Braunmark era, this approach was perfectly rational. The implants used back then featured straight-walled bodies, relatively shallow threads, and machined surfaces. Consequently, achieving high initial stability in low bone density was difficult, and the capacity for osseointegration was limited compared to what we have today. As a result, a prolonged healing period was essential to ensure sufficient osseointegration. Early studies by Lars Adel and his team reported that the difference in bone quality between the maxilla and mandible could affect implant success. This established the clinical benchmark of an unloaded healing period, typically 3 months for the mandible and 6 months for the maxilla. However, over the past 50 years, implant dentistry has advanced in both surface treatment and design. With these continuous breakthroughs, we can now achieve levels of initial stability and rapid osseointegration that were once unimaginable. In 2002, Cochrane et al. Reported high success rates with SLA surface implants after just 6 weeks of healing. This was a critical turning point, proving that advancements in implant surface technology meant a 3 to 6 month healing period was no longer a given. As surfaces and designs continued to evolve, the traditional Braunmark protocol gradually shortened, leading to the widespread clinical adoption of the 4-month maxillary and 2-month mandibular healing protocols. Later, studies by Ottoni and others introduced insertion torque as a key criterion for immediate loading. From this point on, clinicians began shifting their focus from the healing period itself to implant stability. Meredith quantified implant stability using RFA, laying the groundwork for predicting loading timing, while Ostman later applied insertion torque and ISQ to loading decisions. The core question in implant dentistry shifted from "how long should we wait" to "how stable is it?" Implant dentistry was no longer just a passive waiting game for bone integration. It became a strategy to actively secure stability and induce faster osseointegration. Backed by the widespread use of ISQ measurement devices, a truly patient-specific environment was established. Yet those rigid standards, 4 months for the maxilla and 2 months for the mandible, still persist in many practices. Why do these outdated rules still apply in modern implant dentistry? Perhaps it stems from the ISQ dip, the temporary drop in ISQ values around week 3. This average healing pattern has been mistaken for a universal rule for every patient and implant, creating a lingering inertia toward fixed, time-based protocols. But this approach lacks scientific rigor. A protocol that fails to monitor individual biology simply fails to respect the patient's biology. What if we broke free from this mindset and determined loading timing through a more objective method? Loading should follow patient-specific biology, not the calendar. MegaGen proposes a new patient-specific implant loading protocol. To address this, MegaGen introduced the knife thread design, which functionally separates the fixture into a core body and threads. In low bone density, it increases only the thread depth while maintaining the core. This secures stable initial fixation without underdrilling or excessive bone compression, the primary culprits behind the ISQ dip. Instead of compressing the bone, the knife thread focuses on precise cutting and engagement. Designed to engage perpendicular to the bone, it minimizes the compressive forces typically caused by tangential engagement. As a result, it establishes a biomechanical environment that secures high insertion torque and high immediate ISQ across various bone densities, while minimizing bone damage and resorption to maintain stable initial fixation without any drop in ISQ. Furthermore, the X-Speed surface, featuring a calcium titanate-based nanostructure of around 200 to 300 nanometers, boosts osteoblast differentiation and activity by approximately 2.5 times compared to conventional SLA surfaces. Consequently, the X-Speed surface delivers a higher MAR, resulting in superior BIC at 4 and 6 week healing intervals. This provides an ideal biological environment for faster peri-implant bone formation and early osseointegration, even in soft, cancellous bone like the posterior maxilla. Building this biomechanical and biological environment enables a predictable, biology-driven, accelerated loading protocol. Backed by 14 years of clinical data showing stable or continuously rising ISQ patterns, immediate loading or a 4-week loading protocol is now a reality for many cases. Based on this evidence, MegaGen has systematized its biology-driven accelerated loading protocol. On the day of placement, immediate temporization is possible when the following ITV and ISQ criteria are met. For a single missing tooth, a minimum of 45 Newton and an ISQ of 75 or higher. For multiple missing teeth, 40 Newton and an ISQ of 70 or higher. And for a fully edentulous arch, 39 Newton and an ISQ of 65 or higher. Of course, because implant designs and surface characteristics vary, applying a blanket standard to every single case is difficult. But the core point remains: patient biology, not time, should guide loading decisions. The question, how long until we can load, is fundamentally wrong. We must consider the patient's bone condition, systemic health, healing response, and the specific implant system, all scientifically determined through active biological monitoring. This shift in mindset will define the next generation of implant loading protocols. Ultimately, clinicians can make effective, scientifically backed decisions while cutting chair time nearly in half. For patients, the unloading period and discomfort are minimized, driving the advancement of technology toward a more predictable realization of immediate function. Loading protocols should not be time-driven. They should be biology-driven. The real question is whether the patient is biologically ready.